Okay, so I want to work on this web usability project, and I found the website that I actually want to do some usability testing on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this website. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to choose File, Page, Save As. I understand you cannot see the word file, that's why I spoke it, but File, using Firefox, Save Page As. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it, not in PHP book, but I'm going to save it down to my desktop in the class website, CS142, dev folder, usability testing. And I'm going to give it a name. Instead of calling it class roster, I'm actually going to call it, I should call it class roster, because that's what it is. But I'm going to put a hyphen in there instead of a blank space. I'm going to make sure I choose web page complete. I'm just going to choose save. Boom. That actually saves everything. All the images, the whole 9 yards go into that folder. So if we pop in here and look, we now have class roster.html, class roster files, has all sorts of things in it. Okay? Well, what I'm going to do, this is going to be my original, so I'm just not going to mess with it. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it, paste it, and I'm actually going to call it before1.html. This file actually still links to all of the CSS over here, so it's just an exact duplicate. Okay. So I'm going to FTP these up because they're all going to be here in NetBeans. If I come in here and look, haven't edited them yet. But they're all sitting there. So I'm going to take care of that FTP, and I'll be right back. Okay, I FTP'd it up onto my folder, and then I can confirm that it is working here. You can see where I've got it saved. I can confirm that it's working. Looks exactly the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my usability testing. I'm going to have a bunch of users go through a bunch of scenarios. I'm going to observe the testing. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to try to get the user to think out loud, ask questions at the end, following the test scripts. And I'm going to review this with my teammates, and we're going to come up with a bunch of solutions and problems that we've identified. So I kind of have a little bit of a problem solution set I whipped up here. I just whipped it up in Word for the moment. And I'm linking to the site that I'm doing my usability testing on. And I've got a bunch of problems listed. So a bunch of problems we discovered in usability testing is the list of students' names is hard to separate the rows when you're looking at them. It makes it kind of a challenge when you're here and you're looking at all these names. It's like, well, which row am I? They kind of just all blend together. They've got spacing, but I'd like to see something else. So we're thinking of a zebra effect. It's going to be our solution. When we're looking at a particular student like this, we don't know which one we're on, so a solution we have there would be a hover effect. Now, one of the things is when I come to the page, I really don't care about anything up here for the most part, and I have to scroll to get to the list. So it'd be nice, the solution we have is to condense all this so it kind of fits in a more concise way. Okay? Now, when I do scroll all the way to the bottom of the list, I need these links all the time. I'm always trying to add a student or look at their photos or export the files or export my class list or email the class. And so the solution we have there is to create local navigation up at the top here. Just one row, and that'll get rid of all of these links here, kind of shorten that page a little. The other problem I have, not so much with this class, because this class only has 6 people in it. Ideally, this class we'd see everything on one page. But many classes have 100, 200 people in it. So when we get all the way to the bottom in our scrolling, we lost our menu. So it'd be kind of nice to kind of just have that menu up here fixed at the top. So that would be our 5th solution, is to reorganize the menu. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to fix all these problems at this second. I'm going to work on the first one. And notice that I've separated my problems into distinct separate things to fix. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is my before site is working fine. I've got it. It looks like the original, which is what I was hoping it would do. So I'm simply going to copy it. And I'm going to name it after. Get rid of the word copy. We don't need that there. Okay, I'm going to name it after 1. All right. And then I'm going to link my links here. This is going to go to before 1. This link is going to go to after 1. Before 2, after 2. Before 3, after 3. Okay. So now that I've got those in there, I'm just going to come over to NetBeans. And I've got after 1. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a link style sheet. And I'm going to send it to custom.css, which is one I'm going to make. In fact, I'm going to call it custom-1, because this is after 1, custom 1. All right, I'm going to work off of that. All right, I actually have to make that CSS style sheet. I don't remember if I have or not. So I'll have to come in here and do that. So I'm going to make that style sheet. Hang on. So I made that custom 1 style sheet. I just, file, new file, put it in class roster files because that was the folder that was created when I saved the web page. So I have it. There's nothing in it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I want to fix I've linked it and I want to fix my changes. Okay, so based upon our feedback, we needed to make those rows a little bit more identifiable and a little bit easier to read. So a couple of things that we had in mind were we're going to collapse the borders because we're going to be using a background color effect for the nth child odd and even, and it's just going to work out better and look a little bit more professional if we collapse the borders. Currently you may have noticed that there's a space between those borders. So you may have noticed that currently there's like a little bit of space in here, and we just want to kind of push them all together and clean that up a bit. So that'll collapse those borders. We'll add an odd and even color effect, and we'll put a little bit of extra padding in there so things are just spaced out a little bit more. Kind of want to be careful about the extra padding because if we go too big, it's going to make the page too long. But from what we gathered from our users, we think that might be just perfect. Okay. So I'm going to go save this and FTP it, and we'll take a peek at after 1. Okay, after I FTP'd that, it went to my sitemap, and I clicked my link on my sitemap to get to my after 1 testing. And, well, I didn't realize it was going to actually, all of these are tables. And come down here. I kind of like the effect. Not exactly what I wanted. It seems to be missing a little bit. It's not quite right. Okay. So I guess the first thing I'm going to do is try to get rid of all of this so I can just target that. So give me a minute to play around with the CSS. Okay, so it took me a few minutes to try to figure that out, but I'm now not targeting those tables, and I've only targeted this table. Let me just kind of show you that one. What I discovered in the HTML was that each table had a summary, so I used the attribute selector to only get that table. So I added that attribute selector to each one of those rules, and that did target just what I wanted. I wasn't too crazy about the spacing here, but at least now I can inspect it with Firebug so I can take a peek at it. And, padding looks so big, but if I take it off, it looks kind of small. I think what the problem is I did padding 3EM all the way around, and I really only wanted it top and bottom. So I'll just add that rule there, and I like that much better, so I'm going to just copy that, and I'm going to apply that to my style sheet. But I'm liking it. So there's my after 1. Okay? So now what I got to do is I don't want to lose this style. So all I have to do is put a 0, and of course that's going to be repeated. Top 0.3, right 0, bottom 0.3, left 0, because those two will repeat. So I have that, so I'm going to save it. Okay? So now this is my starting point. My other recommendations are going to target some other things. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to come into my files, and I've got my after 1. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to call it before 2. So that's where we're going to start from that particular point. I'm going to do the same thing with my CSS so I can maintain integrity from one to the other. And I'm going to call this CSS 2. And I'll go into NetBeans. And I'll open up Actually, before 2 stays exactly the same. Actually, no, before 2 is going to actually target custom1.css. What we actually have to do is I now have to make the after. And I forgot to do that. So we'll come in and I'll make the after 2. And right at this moment, the after 2 and the before 2, of course, are exactly the same. But what we're going to do is I'm going to wind up changing the CSS with the after 2. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to grab my after 2, and I'm simply going to point this to custom2.css, where when I go in there, I'm going to make my additional changes, keeping what I had before. So in the end, all 5 of my recommendations, it's gonna actually show you what I think our consulting firm thinks the site should look like after we're all done. Okay, so this last solution is going to be the perfect site. Not all websites will be able to do this after 1, after 2, after 3, after 4, the final version type of thing. There might be a time where you can't sneak that in like that, and you'll have to do something different. But for the most part, everybody should be able to accomplish this on the assignment. I hope this helps you understand the assignment a little bit better, and good luck.